Hello once again to another spooky Nightmare Tuesday, where I'm pretty sure this one's actually not that spooky. Hi, I'm Cy, I'm some idiot, and today, from the phenomenal Nightmare Press catalog, we have got No One Can Save Us by Kendall Phillips. The synopsis for this book is as follows. Adam always keeps his powers in check. As the world's only superhero, he must know his limits. Defeat the master criminal, repel an army, stop a natural disaster, but never let himself go too far. Until Syangnom. I hope that's pronounced right. Syangnom. Yeah, I'm going to go with Syangnom. The world has grown accustomed to the feats of its only superhuman. Adam's wife, Sara, a celebrated journalist and periodic hostage, regularly reports his exploits, and the agents of Extra-Judicial Affairs handle all the legal issues. But when Adam becomes enraged in the reclusive regime of Syangnom, he leaves 14 million people dead and the world recoiling from the destruction he has wrought. Now, Adam's wife Sara and EJA agent Pia Mercado must track down the conspiracy behind Adam's breakdown and discover the otherworldly source of his powers. Their search will bring them face to face with supervillains, eldritch gods, and the mysterious figure who defends Chicago from the shadows, an armored hero known only as No One. Okay, I'm really curious about that. As ever with any of these, this is my first bit of exposure. Like, literally, well, I just got done with recording Unsong from this last Sunday, which you should also go check out. But like literally right before I finished that recording, I downloaded this. This is my first time opening it, reading the synopsis. I like getting my raw reactions. So, we are already 2.5, 3 minutes into this. Let's get going. No One Can Save Us by Kendall Phillips. Published by Nightmare Press of Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Copyright 2025 by Nightmare Press, all rights reserved. Edited by Jacob Floyd, all cover work by Christy Aldrich of Grim Poppy Design. No portion of this book may be copied or transmitted in any form, electronic or otherwise, without express written consent of the publisher or author. Which I do have. Dedicated to Catherine, who saved me. Other works by Kendall Phillips include Projected Fears, Horror Films in American Culture, Dark Directions, Romero, Craven, Carpenter, and the Modern Horror Film, A Place of Darkness, The Rhetoric of Horror in Early American Cinema, A Cinema of Hopelessness, The Rhetoric of Rage in 21st Popular Culture, and Kolchak, The Night Stalker. We're definitely dealing with a horror aficionado. Much respect there, Kendall. Chapter 1. Well, if it isn't Sarah Wayland, America's favorite damsel in distress, a familiar voice boomed. Across the cavernous room, heads turned toward her. A smattering of applause broke out. A few hoots, at least one whistle. Sara stepped forward, letting the entrance door swing shut behind her. She raised her hand melodramatically to her throat, and then laughter sprang up around the room, much of it likely at her expense, but some genuine. Perhaps a few of her fellow reporters still viewed her as a colleague and friend. What looked to be a mess hall on most days, the room served today as a holding area for the assembled journalists. At its far end, technicians fiddled with the television cameras set up beneath the State Department dais. A neat row of chairs stood empty behind them, waiting to be filled by the reporters, who now sat lounging at a scattering of dining hall tables at the rear end of the room. The musk of the group wafted towards Sara. Hairspray and cologne, mixed with stale coffee, cigarettes, and a general air of bored anticipation. The world's press corps gathered in this room for her because of her exclusive. Or maybe they'd just gathered to witness her death. Her fellow reporters were so hard to read. A tingling warmth rose up the back of her neck and sprouted across her cheeks, the familiar buzz of being in the spotlight. In her first years on the job, the bright crimson spots that pushed into her pale cheeks during moments like this embarrassed her. Now, some 15 years later, she welcomed them. She imagined they made her seem humble, as if unfamiliar with having so many eyes on her. At 37, she had spent most of her adult life in the glow of attention, and most of her youth desiring it. She blew kisses to the crowd, eliciting another round of laughter and applause, and then bowed low and rose to offer a more genuine smile. She knew she looked a mess, and could only imagine the state of her always unruly red hair after the 15-hour flight to Seoul. I always pronounce that wrong. I am so sorry. Seoul. Hold on. I apologize really quick, because I can't do this right, or can't do this wrong. Seoul. Seoul. I'm going to go with Seoul. God, I need to remember to do these correctly. My sincere apologies to everyone. Where was I? But it was good to be back on the beat, even in this far-off military base. It had all started with a call from her editor at the Times, an offer from the Embassy of the National Republic of Syangnom, an exclusive, but only in Syangnom City, and in 2 days. When Sara would tell the story, or at least when she imagined telling the story of her exclusive to people in the future, she would say that she rushed right out to catch a flight, but that was not true. She hesitated because of a cold feeling in the pit of her stomach, because of the unpredictable dictator who ran the reclusive nation, and because Adam was on the other side of the universe, and she had no idea when he was coming back. On the long flight from JFK to Seoul, and then the drive through the countryside to the carefully managed demilitarized zone along the border of Syangnom, she pushed aside her fears and focused on this moment. This moment was hers. Sara made her way toward the source of the booming voice, Ed Strickland, who sat at the center of a long dining hall table with 5 other reporters. Ed seemed busy holding court, probably about the sad state of contemporary journalism, his favorite topic. Bitterness seemed to be all that was left of Ed now with Bitterness seemed to be all that was left of Ed now, along with permanent bags under his eyes. Sara half suspected that CNN sent him to far-flung places just to get him out of the office. Success breeds jealousy, her father's slogan echoed in her mind. Ed Strickland embodied that mantra. Ed, so nice of you to come all the way out here just to watch me work. Sara stood intentionally close to Ed. She considered reaching out to shake his hand, but decided against it. Ed smiled, but his cheeks reddened. It's very impressive, really, said a short, dark-haired man with a French accent. Phillips, Sara thought, but couldn't be sure. No one has seen the general commander in years, and no one has ever had an interview within the borders of Syangnom. Not since the revolution. Pity they didn't choose a real reporter, Ed grumbled under his breath before pulling his battered briefcase onto the table. But hey, while you're here, I wanted to get your autograph on this. Ed produced a crumpled page, torn from a magazine. Sara knew the image well. A photograph of her dangling 50 feet in the air, clinging to the metallic claw of a giant robot, taken almost 7 years ago, not long after Adam changed into what he was now. She still remembered the robot's glowing red eyes, their slow pulse as the mechanical monstrosity snatched her up from the earth and lifted her high into the air. Later, she would come to know those glowing red eyes as a signature for the mysterious villain known only as the Engineer, Adam's most persistent nemesis. But at the time, this strange world of robots and monsters was all new and unbelievable. Awash in a strange mix of fear and exhilaration, she gripped the cold metal and was filled with an odd confidence that Adam would arrive just in time to save her. And he did. The photo itself was a lucky shot. The photographer later confessed to her that he shot blindly as he ran away from the towering mechanism. Still, someone at the magazine chose this shot, which didn't manage to catch her face, but did perfectly frame the flash of her white panties. Sara detested this photo. My teenage nephew asked me to get you to sign this. It's his favorite picture of you. Ed beamed with self-satisfaction. Sara whipped a Sharpie out of her jacket pocket and grabbed the page before Ed could react. She scrawled her signature across the image, the practice loop of the S perfectly covering the peak of white between her dangling legs. Ed settled back and crossed his hands over his sunken chest. So, tell me, what's it like being married to the world's only superhero? I mean, I assume you get some kind of special tax break or something? No, but we never have to worry about traffic in the London Tunnel, Sara smiled to the others in the small circle. She nodded to another group sitting a few tables over and began to move away from Ed and his petty jealousies. Oh, but really, come on, Sara. We're all friends here. I know he flies and all that, but what else does he do? Any special bedroom powers you've been hiding? Inquiring minds want to know. Sara's smile flickered as she turned back towards Ed. Well, Ed, I'll tell you, there is one thing. It's a thing Adam gives me that you couldn't even imagine. She paused for a moment and leaned in closer. It's called an orgasm. The group burst into laughter, and Ed smiled along with the joke. Sara hoped the barbed repartee was over. She felt the jet lag beginning to roll in behind her eyes. The opening press conference loomed, and then the slow convoy ride away from the military base and through the 2 miles of no man's land that separated the installation from the heavily guarded border of Syangnom. I will get this. Sara, can you just answer me one more thing? Ed was falling into the combative patter that at one point made him a media sensation. Sara did not have the energy to play this game. Not today. Why does the reclusive leader of the world's most isolated nation pick you for an exclusive interview? Why not someone with real experience or journalistic credentials? Is the general really going to answer your questions, or just lock you in a tower and wait for your glowing husband to show up? She rarely heard the grumbling of professional jealousy laid out so clearly and right in front of her. Sara recalled the years she had spent proofing copy and getting coffee for the promising young male reporters at the Times before getting her first break on a human interest story about orphans in the Balkans. The way she'd played to the ego of the deputy minister to get the travel pass. The way she coaxed the confidence of the junior nurse in charge to gain access to the orphanage. Long before she turned those horrors into newspaper copy, she learned what her real talent was. Getting people to tell her their story. She had a knack for it. She used the same skills in Argentina after the earthquake, and on Wall Street during the gold and silver crisis. She'd won a Loeb Award for the series on Wall Street, and a Pulitzer for the orphanage story. But those were the days when Adam was still just Adam, and these grizzled old reporters envied her youth and exuberance instead of her husband. Sara wanted to insist that the accident that changed Adam had not changed everything, had not changed her. She wanted to claim this moment as hers, as truly hers, but she hesitated. A distinctly British voice cut through the tense circle. Ed, could you tell us the story of when you and Edward R. Murrow rode dinosaurs during the invasion of Normandy? I love that one. Timothy Kyle stooped down to give Sara a polite peck on the cheek, his long, thin arms wrapping around her. Timothy was not much more than 40, but his fearlessness was legendary. War zones, natural disasters, supervillains. Timothy Kyle faced them all with his thick glasses, posh accent, and trademark light blue anorak. Sara squeezed him so hard she feared his ribs might break. Now, gentlemen, if you'll excuse us, those of us holding golden tickets need to discuss logistics for this afternoon. Timothy held up his bright red press pass, the official seal of the Republic of Syangnom, stamped clearly on its front. What the fuck? Ed exclaimed. What, so you get to be in the front row while we sit here in this sweat box waiting for Her Highness to come back across the DMZ and tell us how it went? Yes, Ed. This is what reporters do. At least real reporters. Timothy beamed. Sara followed Timothy to a table in the far corner where Timothy's cameraman rifled nervously through his equipment bag. So you managed to get approval? Impressive. Well, ITN has long arms and even deeper pockets, but really, we're just allowed outside the Ministry of Order, so not much more than a glorified location shot? But you... Timothy paused and leaned into Sara. Are you sure about this? I mean, hasn't he... your husband... Adam? Sara offered. Inwardly, she smiled. Before the accident, people hesitated to say Adam's name because they couldn't remember it. Since the change, people hesitated to say it out of reverence, or maybe even fear. Yes, sorry, Adam. Hasn't he had run-ins with the Syangnom before? Oh, that. Sara waved her hand. Look, seriously, if I had to worry about every government, crime organization, or evil genius that Adam's pissed off, I wouldn't be able to do my job. Timothy leaned back. You really don't worry, do you? I mean, I know I put myself in tricky situations, but you just leap right into anything. It's worked out so far. Lucky, I guess. Well, luck and a little insurance policy. Timothy took his glasses off and absent-mindedly began rubbing them on his rumpled white shirt. Sara glanced away and tried to remember the last time someone had mentioned her without a reference to her husband. The two sat in silence for a few moments, the low din of the assembled reporters filling the space between them. Sara traced the smooth surface of the mess hall table with her fingers. She felt faint ridges of sticky circles left over from the morning's breakfast, and wondered about the soldiers who spent their days here on the edge of the demilitarized zone. Just 4 kilometers, less than Sara's usual morning run, separated the young soldier who sat here this morning from some other young soldier. 4 kilometers between life and death. At least with Timothy on the trip, Sara would have one friendly face among the anxious military officials who would accompany her into the heavily fortified gates of the Republic of Syangnom. Then, past those gates, into the isolated nation's capital, Syangnom City. A quiet voice inside Sara wondered whether she should have delayed, pushed this off until Adam returned. She shook the voice away. I assume Adam is around somewhere? No, Sara said. I think he's fighting monsters on the other side of the universe with that other planet. I'd never know. Sara shrugged. She no longer worried about Adam's periodic visits to the planet of Rylea. This is a moment where the reader is pausing and just going to stare directly at the camera. Kendall, what you doing here? That's a specific name. I'm going to continue. His marvelous tales of towering creatures and strange aliens would have been unbelievable if Sara had not seen one of them up close. She shuddered and stood up to relieve her anxious energy. You say that so nonchalantly. The planet. Just so. Incredible, Timothy said. I think about it sometimes. Our reality, everything, just changed after that thing in Long Beach. No warning, no preparation. Just a sudden flash of this new world. Giant alien and a superpowered human and all that destruction. Strange. Now I can barely remember what things were like before it. Oh, you mean before supervillains started popping up out of the woodwork and my husband started glowing? Sara laughed. You know, the 10th anniversary of Long Beach is coming up. The city wants Adam and me to come and commemorate it. Think they're going to unveil some kind of statue. Strange days indeed. But don't you ever wonder how this all happened? Sara stretched her arms, then patted Timothy on the shoulder. I did, at least at first. Then I just knew that the world is a stranger place than we imagined, but that was okay. And Adam is always there. No point worrying about it. And if you'll excuse me, now that I know a camera crew's coming along, I need to freshen up my hair and makeup. Okay, yeah, we're doing 2 chapters. Wait. Oh no. Wait. There we go. Okay. Chapter 2. The roar from the crowd almost deafened Adam. He raised his arms in salute to the assembled throng, and the noise grew even louder. Lifting off gently from the ground, he rose until he could see the full extent of the masses gathered within the walled courtyard. Floating above the festivities, Adam estimated their number to be at least 20,000. He recognized several of the Rylean warriors as they stared up at him. Many were still in their battle uniforms, heavy metallic armor gleaming in the sun. Their win over the invading ice giants was hard won, and the subsequent celebration almost as impressive. But now it was ending. Adam must return to his real home, to Earth. With a little exertion, Adam floated even higher above the crowd, high enough to see beyond the castle's walls. Past the city's edge, great fields extended off to the west, where they met towering, snow-capped mountains. The grasses glowed lush green and lavender. To the north of the great plain, a marvelously white beach extended as far as he could see, bordered by the crystal blue waters of the Rylean Sea. The violet-tinged sky was clear, and just to the east he could make out the planet's 2 moons beginning their slow rise into the afternoon sky. Adam inhaled deeply, the fecund smile of earth filling his nose. Every corner of Rylea was in bloom. It was too beautiful, too perfect. Adam closed his eyes and embraced the moment. Triumph, peace, adoration. Opening his eyes, Adam scanned the crowd gathered outside the royal castle. The common people of Rylea were also celebrating the recent victory, and the twisting streets of the Rylean capital were filled. The revelers cheered up at him, and his waves elicited another deafening roar. The market stalls would do great trade tonight. For a moment, Adam imagined descending into the crowd, embracing their adoration, becoming one of them. True, he was much shorter and slighter than the Ryleans, most of whom stood 7 or 8 feet in height. Adam often thought they were a more idealized version of humanity. Only their size and slightly bluish skin marked them as alien. Nowhere near their statuesque form, Adam stood just a bit under 6 feet. A middle-aged paunch hung loosely around his midsection. Still, whatever his shortcomings, he was their champion. Turning his gaze south, Adam examined the royal castle. 6 towers stretched to improbable heights, twisting and turning in ways that almost defied the laws of physics. The walls of the castle were made of gleaming white stone, and the pinnacle of each tower was a different shade of metal: blue, red, green, gold, orange, and silver. In the center was the imposing dome of the castle's keep, its metallic black surface absorbing the beaming sunlight. Somewhere within the sprawling structure was Obadema, the queen of Rylea. She promised him she would not venture out for his final farewell, and as he looked down upon the royal platform, Adam could see that she had kept her word. His parting, she told him, was too painful. Her last word whispered warmly into his ear. Stay. Adam hung motionless in the air for a moment longer, muscles aching from using so much power to beat back the monstrous ice giants summoned by the Slogoths in their most recent attempt to destabilize Obadema's rule. He had flown into battle, leading an army of Obadema's perfectly chiseled warriors. He had pushed himself to his breaking point, testing the strange power that emanated from his body to its very limits. Strained as the rippling tendrils of telekinetic force reached out from him to rip down the Slogoth ships from the sky, pull the boulders from the mountains to pummel the giants, and finally brought the Slogoth general quivering to his knees. The moment of triumph sent a bolt of exhilaration through his spine, but deep in his heart, the real thrill came not from the victory, but from the effort. The sheer exertion of battling foes who were, if not his equal, threateningly close. Stay. The word echoed in Adam's mind. He could almost feel the moist breath from Obadema's lips, and for a moment he considered the invitation. This was his 5th journey to Rylea, and the 4th time he consciously chose to come to the aid of this strange alien world so far away from his home. In each trip, he battled their threats, received their adoration, and then left. And on each trip, he considered the option to stay. Adam regarded the royal platform, the colorful battle banners, the various royal families in their elaborate finery, the empty throne in the middle platform. How easy it would be to have a second throne fashioned, one for Obadema and one for him. But a red carpet extended down from the wooden platform across to the far end of the courtyard. It ended at a large stone platform upon which sat an enormous stone circle. This was the gate to home. What awaited him at home was far less glamorous than the raucous celebration gripping the Rileyan capital. An in-depth interview with a nightly TV anchor who had probably become Sara's new best female friend, Adam mused, to secure the interview. A meeting with the Extra-Judicial Affairs liaison to debrief about the robot attack in Boston. Another meeting with their building's co-op board to reassure them that he and Sara did not put them in any immediate danger. A parade in Wellington, honoring Adam's work to spare them from a recent tsunami. On Earth, there were no hulking ice giants or lizard creatures to battle. Just soldiers and disasters and criminals, sporting hopped-up handguns or wearing homemade armor. At least the engineer occasionally made things interesting. Those robots could be fierce, and their glowing red eyes always carried a hint of real menace. Of course, it didn't take much effort to dispose of any of these earthly threats. If anything, the real effort was in not going too far, making sure the energy tendrils disabled the villain's armor instead of tearing off a limb. At least the engineer's robots allowed him to cut loose for a little bit. But really, seeing Sara would be the hardest part of the trip home. His returns from Rylea no longer elicited a warm reunion, and any mention of the alien world caused a chilly silence that he'd learned to avoid. Initially, he thought Sara resented not being able to accompany him to the strange, fantastic land he'd described. But more and more, he suspected resentment that he was not only the savior of Earth, but also of this other planet. Somewhere inside, he also imagined Sara might be jealous of Obedema. A strange distance had drifted into his marriage over the past few years. He still loved his wife, but sometimes it felt as if they were going through the motions of a life together, rather than really sharing one. It had not always been like this. Adam still remembered first seeing Sara. She looked up at him as he walked into his first class of 6th grade, and inside, he knew she was special. Her bright eyes fired a bolt of lightning right into his soul. Sara was everything he was not. She was smart, gregarious, athletic. She could talk about anything. She listened well, seemed to genuinely care. She was so far out of his league. Pursuing her was like trying to race a tricycle against sports cars. Throughout high school, he lingered, wearing her down with his sheer presence, and eventually he broke through. She agreed, more out of pity than anything else, to be his date for junior prom. They kissed at the end of that night, and had stayed together ever since. They struggled through the first few years. Sara went off to a fancy college upstate. She rose quickly through the academic ranks, editor of the college paper by her sophomore year, and then internships at various newspapers and magazines in Manhattan. It hadn't been easy for him to leave the safety of the family business, a greasy spoon masquerading as a restaurant in their little Massachusetts hometown. He worked odd hours in Brooklyn diners, delis, and even some of the fancier Soho restaurants, while she spent her days in and out of the press rooms in Midtown. But at least those days they had felt like a team. Adam gladly played the part of house husband, setting a warm cup of coffee on Sara's nightstand just before her alarm was set to go off, and having breakfast ready by the time she padded down the hallway. They got married just before Sara turned 25. She was preparing for her second trip to Serbia to report on the war, and marriage seemed like a way to mark their life together and her growing success. But as Sara advanced into her career, winning a Pulitzer and other awards he never knew existed, Adam felt less like the supporting husband and more like a tag-along. She was always preoccupied with her next assignment, travel arrangements, her life. But then Adam took the job on the expedition to the South Pole, and then the accident happened, and everything changed. Afterwards, after he became what he was now, Sara seemed almost giddy. They were like a caricature of the perfect couple. She, the intrepid reporter. He, the world's only superhero. The cover of People magazine declared Adam and Sara, the power couple. And Sara loved it all. The parties and receptions, receiving the keys to countless major cities. Secretly, Adam believed she also loved the danger. She'd been taken hostage at least a half dozen times by folks ranging from low-level gang leaders hoping to enhance their street credibility to major supervillains. He still remembered the last time, Sara surrounded by an army of murderous, red-eyed robotic drones designed by the engineer. Just as she was about to be engulfed, he arrived, catching her in his arms while reaching out with his psychic tendrils to decimate the metallic threats. They made love that evening with more passion than he could ever remember feeling in his early Brooklyn deli days. But that thrill only lasted a few days. Then they were back to missing each other in the mornings and communicating largely through text messages and notes scrawled on a pad next to the microwave. Last week, when the alien pendant signaled Rylea's need for him, Sara sent a text message. Am at breakfast, trinket glowing. Adam considered staying as he slowly floated back to the cobblestones of the courtyard. It was time to decide. But decisions were never easy for Adam. Growing up, his parents made all his decisions, and then Sara's career guided their early years. After the change, the government was always sending him off to some natural disaster or military uprising or hostage situation. Even here on Rylea, Adam simply followed the path laid out before him. Ice giants, slithering lizard creatures, towering monsters with snapping tendrils, all were easy targets. Sometimes, Adam imagined himself as some kind of wind-up toy. Just point him in the right direction and let him go. The crowd grew silent as Adam alighted upon the red carpet and began walking slowly towards the great stone platform. Many in the crowd bowed their head in reverence as he passed by. What would it be like to stay here? To choose to stay? A life of being worshipped, a life of adventure, a life where he didn't have to hold back for fear of crushing some fragile human's body. But a life without Sara. As Adam walked up the steps to face the large stone circle that would transport him back to Earth, it occurred to him that he did not so much want to leave Rylea for Earth, or stay on Earth instead of journeying to Rylea. Somewhere deep in his soul, Adam wanted to stay within the gate, to be on both Earth and Rylea, the best of both worlds. Adam shook away the fantastic daydream. The stone circle towering above him was not a bridge, it was a gate. Without turning back to the now silent crowd, Adam stepped into the circle and found himself engulfed in the strange, intense light of an indescribable color. After a timeless instant, he emerged through the alien gate's counterpart on Earth, submerged at the bottom of the Southern Ocean. On earlier trips, he panicked in the irrational fear of drowning, but now he climbed out of the sunken alien gate into the frigid waters without concern. Slowly, he extended the psionic tendrils as far as he could manage. One last stretch before returning to the fragile world of humans, to Sara, to home. And I really want to continue reading on this one, but my own personal thing, I stop after 2 chapters of the latest. I'm really enjoying this feels like a nice slow burn buildup going on here. I feel like probably another chapter, maybe 2, is when it'll start going a little bit faster. Not at all a bad thing. Literally just making an observation of it. I think it's being done very well here. I like the exposition of both of them as individuals, like right out the gate. I also really enjoy the nod of like just basic level humanity that's being presented in what is, the superhero. Structurally, doing that after the chapter from a non-superhero perspective really helps draw some like solid comparisons and things, or maybe not comparisons. It illustrates it well. I am just staring at the screen like, come on, man, Slogoths in the Antarctic. I'm not saying that in any negative sense. I'm saying that in what the hell is laying in wait up ahead. Though there's some powerful terminology and concerns being brought up here. This is making me wonder, like, what's up ahead? What is it? I need to know what is going on here, man. There's some. I'm expecting some kind of, with the synopsis that I read and some of those word choices and location choices. No, what is going on? Also, with the fact that like you clearly are a horror aficionado from like your other works. No. There is something terrifying here, and I kind of like it. This is really good. I enjoyed this quite a bit, and I look forward to reading the rest of it. That being said, you should also enjoy reading the rest of this and the other items in Nightmare Press's catalog. I'm now talking to you, the listener, who has made it this far through the video. I love you very much. Thank you. Nightmare Press, I will have a link to both their webpage as well as their Facebook page in the description. There will be a link to this book where you can go purchase a copy for yourself. Please check out both of those. And if you are so inclined, I do have a Nightmare Tuesdays playlist with the previous works that I've gone over. I believe in order it was A Soul a Day, Scroll of Ramos, Scribe of Egypt, Murky Depths. Was it called Murky Depths? Hold on. No. My brain. What is going on with my brain? It was, come on, where you at? Murky Shadows. That's what it was. I still remembered at least it was Belinda Brady. It was Belinda. I am terrible with names at times, but it was good reading. That I do remember. The story of the log in that one. Fantastic. And Santa. Chilling. Anyway, and then last week was Sarah Corbin's Bloody Revenge from my dear buddy Coyote Wallace. That one is coming out here in a couple of weeks on November 7th. Go get yourself a Kendall pre-order. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking before I embarrass myself any further by misremembering or mispronouncing anything. I want to leave you all with I hope you're doing well. God, can you tell I don't script this shit? Go grab yourself a copy of this. No One Can Save Us by Kendall Phillips, published by Nightmare Press. Truly enjoyed the heck out of this. And there is like a sinking pit in my stomach at where this might be going with just the cover of the book, some of the Rylea, man. Okay, I'm gonna stop. You guys take care. Enjoy the reading, and deuces.